DNA is an incredible building block of life. The way it works together is absolutely miraculous. Let's learn just a little bit about the structure of DNA so that we can learn about all of the amazing things that it does. Remember that it is a double helix. This means that it is shaped like a spiral staircase. The backbone of the staircase, or these side parts, all along in here, are made up of a specific sugar called deoxyribose, and it's also made up of phosphates. So you can see here, these are the sugars, and these are the phosphates, right along in here. Oftentimes, this will be called a deoxyribose phosphate backbone. The steps, or the rungs of the ladder, are called nitrogenous bases. And there are actually two subgroups of nitrogenous bases called purines. And the purines are going to consist of adenine and guanine. And then there are also pyrimidines and those are cytosine and thymine. So when you look in here, we'll oftentimes call these by A's, C's, T's, and G's. So we'll just have to remember that pyrimidines are C's and T's, and one funny way that I kind of sometimes will remember this, even though King doesn't start with a C, it can kind of help you remember. King Tut lives in a pyramid. That's just one handy little way to help you remember that. Now, when you actually put these things together, you're going to make up what's called a nucleotide. So when you put together the deoxyribose sugar here, and when you put together the phosphate there, and add in a nitrogenous base, and in this case we're looking at adenine, which is a purine, you make up what is called a nucleotide. So that's what this picture is here. Now, only certain nucleotides can bind with specific other nucleotides. In other words, purine bases can only bind with other pyrimidine bases. This means that adenine can only bind with thymine, and thymine with adenine, where guanine can only bind with cytosine, and cytosine can only bind with guanine. So let's look at this. A's will always bind with T's, and G's will always bind with C's, and vice versa. C with G, and T's with A's. Just like that. So when we are looking at our ladder, you can see A goes with T, and G goes with C. A's goes with T, G's goes with C's. And that's what we call the base pair rules. So when they all bind together, they form this typical structure that you think of when looking at DNA. But when they bind, there's actually a strange orientation that occurs. If you notice, there is a little extra tip on either end of the DNA caused by an extending phosphate group. You can see that here and down here. We call that in the 5' end. And then the other side, you'll see the 3' ends don't have that extra kind of tail poking out. So let's look at where we got deoxyribonucleic acid, because remember, that's what DNA stands for. Deoxyribonucleic acid. The deoxyribo portion, comes from the deoxyribose sugar that makes up this backbone. The nucleic portion comes from the fact that it is found in the cell nucleus. And the acid portion actually comes from that extra phosphate group that makes the 5' end. So just as a quick review, the backbone is made up of deoxyribose sugars and phosphate groups. The rungs of the latter are made of nitrogenous bases that are separated into categories: purines, which consist of adenine and guanine; pyrimidines, which consist of cytosine and thymine. And remember that purines are always going to bind with pyrimidines. So that's what we've got for the structure of DNA. Let's go ahead and go build our own today.